So in my time of being in the fountain pen community, very few pens have garnered a lot of hype at around their time of launch. A few pens that I'd put on that list include the TWSBI Eco and the Lamy Petrol line. So let's meet the pen that joins this list. So this is the Wingsung 698, a fountain pen that breaks many of the norms that are set by a majority of the Chinese fountain pens. Usually Chinese fountain pens are dirt cheap. This pen, however, was $20 US. A lot of the Chinese fountain pens are very low quality, and this seems to be very, very high quality. This pen has a very expensive and high quality piston mechanism, something that you'd only find until a few years ago on very high end pens until the TWSBI Eco was launched. So let's kick off the video as always with the specs and ergonomics. So capped, this pen is 14.3 centimeters long. Uncapped, it is 13.3 centimeters long. Posted, it is 16.7 centimeters long. Weight, it is about 25 grams, and uncapped, it is about 15 grams, leaving the cap to be about 10 grams in weight. So, overall, this is a very ergonomic and very utilitarian pen, and the reason why I say that is the features of this pen are very ergonomic, and it should be ergonomic for most people. There's no triangular, tripod grip. It's very circular. It's about 12 millimeters in diameter, so most people should be able to use this pen very, very comfortably. In terms of the length, it is 13.3 centimeters long, unposted, which means that most people should be able to use this pen uncapped, because some pens are very, very short and they force you to cap it. This pen, very, very comfortable indeed. This pen here that I have is very, very easy to cap, and it does stay capped, though some people have noted in their experience with this pen that the cap does tend to come off a little bit. My only complaint is if you do post this pen, it becomes a little bit unbalanced, and if you do like a pen where the back is a little bit more heavier than the front, this is perfect, but for most people, having this pen unposted should be very ergonomic indeed. Another thing about this pen is the grip section. I absolutely love it. It is very, very similar to the Pilot 78G, though it is a little bit thicker, and I do love the grip section on the 78G. Very comfortable to hold with most grip styles. So let's move on to the body of the fountain pen. So the colour that you have here is the lake blue colour, which is very nice, though this pen does come in several colours, including a very beautiful demonstrator pen. This pen here, however, is not the demonstrator pen, so to make up for the lack of see-through and transparency, the designers have put in this very small ink window, very similar to what you'd find on a Mont Blanc Meisterstück or something like that, or a Pelikan, and the ink window is very helpful at showing you when this pen is empty, but that's about it. If you try to look at it this way, you can't really see the ink level that well, and as well as that, you don't know how full the pen is. You don't know if it's this full or this full, you just know when it is getting empty. So let's talk about the material that this pen is made from, and you can instantly tell when you pick up this fountain pen that this is a very, very high quality Chinese fountain pen. If you pick up a very similar Wingsung 3008, you can sort of tell that the material is sort of high quality, but it's high quality for a Chinese fountain pen, but this is high quality for a pen full stop. It feels very similar to when you pick up, say, a Pilot Prera that uses, I believe, acrylic for the barrel. You can tell that in terms of the weight. This is 15 grams unposted, and a very similar Wingsung 3008 is about 13 grams unposted, which means it's about 2 grams heavier, and while that's not a big difference, when you're talking on the scale of 13 grams versus 15 grams, you can certainly notice it. It's about 15 15% heavier, which is certainly noticeable, and it is very, very high quality when you pick this pen up. In terms of scratch resistance, this is a very scratch resistant plastic. I've been using this everyday carry for about a month now, and it is held up very, very well. It can take a lot of stress and strain on the barrel. No way this thing is going to break on you. Next, let's talk about the piston mechanism, because of course this is a piston filler fountain pen, and if you don't know what that is, this is a pen that has an internal piston instead of using a converter. The piston here draws up ink into the barrel, which means you get a very large ink capacity. Now on a TWSBI, all you have to do is twist the end and the ink will be sucked up by the piston. Now on this pen, if you simply twist the back of the pen, what you're going to do is unscrew the whole piston mechanism, and the pressure will drop and all the ink will come out, as I learnt the hard way. Now what you actually have to do is take the white bit at the end, actually pull it up, and then you can move the piston up, backwards and forwards, which is a very cool thing. And then once you have done that, all you have to do is press down, and thankfully the piston will be locked and it cannot move, which means when you end up posting this pen and it might move around a little bit, it won't move the piston, an issue that I had with the Wingsung 3003. Also, fun fact about this pen, the piston also can be operated while you have the cap on. One thing I'll also note about disassembly is it is very easy to disassemble, and when you get this fountain pen in its box, it will also come with a small converter full of silicone grease, so you can grease up the piston just to keep it airtight. Alright then, let's talk about the cap of the Wingsung, because it has a very nice cap. First of all, it's very, very heavy, 10 grams, which makes it feel very high quality. On the top you have this very nice finial, very nice pattern on the top, which is very nice for this pen. It's gold plated. I'm not sure if they probably don't use real gold, but it is very nice to look at. If you look at the clip is very nice, very stiff. There's no way that this is falling out of your pocket, and on it is Lucky. If we look at this nice gold band, you will see Wing S on the front, and on the back Chinese characters and 698, showing that this is indeed a Wingsung 698. One of the things that I do like about this pen is when you put the cap on, they will cover the ink window, which I like very much, which you can see there. So let's talk about the nib of this fountain pen, and right off the bat I'm going to say it is a very, very nice nib to use. And if you look at this nib, it will probably give you deja vu, because it is pretty much copying the Pilot mainstream nib. I'm talking about the nib that you're going to find on the Pilot Kakuno, 78G, Prera, Metro, all those mainstream pens, and I really do love those nibs, and very similarly I do love the knockoff of those nibs. The only difference really being is it is a little bit thicker than those nibs. This one has a fine nib and it's a little bit thicker than the fine nib, though it could have also come in the extra fine nib, which I think is very comparable to the Pilot fine nib. The only other real difference is it says Wing S Super Quality, which is pretty much replacing Pilot Super Quality. And they aren't joking around when they say super quality, because this nib is ground very well. It's not as good as I'd say the Wingsung 3008, but it is ground very well. You've got to remember, this is a nib that is made for a very low amount of money. It is probably made on a very, very large scale, and it is a fine nib, so while it might not be perfect, it is very good. Because this is a Pilot nib, there is not going to be much line variation, but one of the cool things is you can sort of squeeze out a little bit of line variation, and because there is going to be so much ink pushing down on this feed, this pen will not railroad one bit. This pen is nice and wet, and it is very, very reliable. No hard starting on this nib at all, and if you're writing for long periods of time, there is no way that this pen is going to give up and it will force you to, saturate the feed. It is a very, very nice feed in general. One of the reasons why it is a nice feed is because it is not Wingsung's own feed. What they've done is they've copied the Pilot feed as well as the Pilot nib, And in my experience of those feeds, which is a lot of experience, they are very, very reliable indeed. One of the cool things about this pen is because they have chosen to copy Pilot, what you can do, and what I have done, is say take the medium nib, which I love, of the Pilot 78G, and you can easily swap it out for the nib in the Wingsung pen. It is really amazing at what you can do nowadays. So if the nib that you do get by chance is really crap, what you can do is find a Pilot nib and pretty much swap it out. As well as that, if you want a medium nib, because this pen only comes in extra fine and fine, if you want a medium nib or maybe an italic broad nib, which is something that Pilot do, you can certainly buy one of those nibs and swap it out. Alright then, welcome to the writing sample for the Wingsung 698. This has the fine nib and it is a Chinese fine, but it is actually a little bit thinner than your typical Chinese fine nib. The ink that I'm using is Pelikan 4001 turquoise. Back using one of my favourite inks. Paper is Clairefontaine, and let's just jump into a writing sample. Alright, and as you can clearly see from that writing sample, everything went super smoothly. There was a little bit of feedback from this nib, but that's just to be expected, just due to it being a fine nib, and it's just hasn't been smoothed amazingly, but it was very, very enjoyable to work with. Very similar to a lot of other fine nibs that I have. As you can see, no skipping whatsoever. The flow of ink was really nice. There was a little bit of shading here, and here you can certainly tell that this bit here was a little bit lighter than the ink here. Very nice shading indeed. And as you can see, very, very little flex at all. If we look at natural line variation, there is very little natural line variation. Maybe the downstrokes are a tiny bit thicker than these side strokes, but it's not enough to be noticeable in everyday writing. As we slowly add more pressure to the nib, little bit of railroading if I take it too fast, but there is certainly a little bit of line variation to be gotten from this nib. Only a really tiny amount, and you won't notice it on a daily basis. It's not enough to be usable, but no line, no pressure. And if you take it slowly, yeah. So if we just take a look at, let me move the camera down a little bit. If you take things nice and slow, you can certainly squeeze a little bit of line variation out of it, but honestly there are probably better pens for line variation. If you take a look at wetness, because this is a full piston filler, this is certainly going to be nice and wet. Look at that, that is beautiful. But if this is near empty, it's going to be a little bit dry, just a little bit. If we look at reverse writing, reverse writing is pretty good on some Chinese fountain pens, and here, very nice indeed. If we just have a look at the reverse lines, it is almost an extra fine. Alright then, and that is the writing sample for the Wingsung 698. Thank you very much for watching.